Julian Sayin, Arvell Reese, and the Ohio State Buckeyes take on Ethan Kaliakmanis and Rutgers in a Big Ten matchup from Columbus. Now, the Buckeyes have one win here to get themselves into position to be in a win and in. Just like last year, a matchup against Michigan at the end of the season, a win and get an appearance into the Big Ten title game. So all of their goals that they set out to do at the beginning of the season are fully still available to them. At this point, well, anything short of an undefeated first team in college football history going 16-0 season will be a disappointment. It's incredible for those words to come out of anyone's mouths, but it's true. If they don't go 16-0, win the Big Ten title, beat Michigan, win the national championship, achieve the 3 goals that Ryan Day talks about, then this season will be deemed a massive, not just a small failure, but a massive failure, looking at a roster that is built with what will likely be 5 first-round top 15 pick guys in Julian Sayin, Smith, Tate, Arvell Reese, Caleb Downs when it's all said and done. Now, what's interesting about this game is the Buckeyes likely do not have Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. If you saw halftime, Smith was sort of limping into the locker room after the game. There's a lot of footage coming out surrounding him. Now, Ryan Day was able to put a lot of people's, I would say, nervous energy a little bit at bay, saying that there are no long-term concerns with those guys. Essentially what that means, they're going to rest for this game against Rutgers most likely, and they will be back out there to play against the team up north in Ann Arbor. Now, you have to give so much credit to Hartline, to Coach Day, for this receiving corps, this dynamic attack, and this array of weapons that they have amassed. This was your future of the position game. You know, when you look at beyond the 2027 season, when there's no Jeremiah Smith and no Carnell Tate or Ennis still on the Buckeyes roster, it's going to be up to Bryson Rogers and Quincy Porter and Mylan Graham. And at that point, that would be Chris Henry Jr., if you're aware of the five-star player coming into Columbus. He'll be a freshman next year playing with Jeremiah, and he'll be competing for playing time with those guys that we just mentioned. But this Buckeye receiving room has the ability to, in the second half, not walk out the best receiving core that college football has seen since Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, and be able to put out 3 5-stars on the field. It's incredible to watch this team continue to recruit at that type of level. You talk about the importance of retaining a Brian Hartline and him not going to Penn State to take that job. These are the types of things. He's put these guys at a level where they truly are a wide receiver U, and if they are not, once these guys get to the league, they will be very soon. Now, in this game against Rutgers, you're playing against a team that wants to maintain time of possession. They want to limit the burden on their quarterback's shoulders, limit how many times Kaliakmanis will throw. Of course, that's the idea. You play Ohio State, let's not make our quarterback have to throw the football all that much. The problem with that lays in going up against this Ohio State run defense, top 5 in the country in rushing defense. The Buckeyes have been very good around that the entire season. They start off the year against Texas, stopping the run. In the entire year, they've been able to limit teams. There was really only one half, and it was against Penn State on the perimeter in that first half, where they were giving up some yards on the ground. But really, outside of that, this team has been dominant against the ground game. What does that mean? 2nd and 9, 2nd and 10, and it's like, okay, if you're going to run on 2nd and 9, 2nd and 10, and we're going to be dropping back into a pass defense, Patricia's like, be my guest. Do you want 3rd and 5 and live in 3rd and 6 all day long? Sure, we'll take that. And the reason why the Buckeyes can be so effective is you have a player like Arvell Reese at off-ball linebacker. He'll be a Butkus Award finalist. That's for the best linebacker in college football. Most likely it goes to Jacob Rodriguez. I think he's done enough of an impact there at Texas Tech, and good for him. But Arvell Reese will wind up being a finalist for the Butkus. But him in the middle of that defense, he's a guy that people are now talking about being possibly the first pick in the NFL draft come this April, which is unbelievable to think about. This guy was not a starter last year, a very important rotational player. He was wearing number 20 and switched that number. If you're a Buckeye fan, you remember him with some impact snaps. he came into the season relatively a national unknown, and he has been an immediate impact player. That game against Texas was his national coming out party. And then what allows him to be opened up? Well, it's his running mate. Sonny Styles might just be the second best linebacker in the country, right behind Arvell Reese. I think that there's debates about whether Reese moves to on the ball edge player. That's not what this video is about. It's about Rutgers. What are they facing? Well, they're looking at facing the best linebacker duo maybe that we've seen this millennium in the sport of college football. Two off-ball guys that fly around with just about sub 4.5 speed. They've got that length, 6'4", 245 pounds. They can run. They can get after the quarterback on third and long. They're so versatile because of that size, that freak athleticism that both of them possess to go sideline to sideline. So that's what's tough. Rutgers staring down that. And of course, what else do the Buckeyes possess? Well, Caleb Downs, he's probably better than both of them and anyone else on the defensive side of the football in college football. So Kaliak Manis from the start, you need to identify where Caleb is. Otherwise, you're liable to just run the football right into him. And I think that was all you needed to see of the UCLA game. First play of the game, screen out towards the boundary, and Caleb Downs makes a tackle for loss. And you're like, okay, well, this game's over. And he doesn't even wind up playing, I don't think, the last defensive possession of the first half. And he doesn't even play the entire second half. So the Buckeyes don't have three of the best 10 players in college football out on the field as they're coasting to a win. What's better than that, essentially, when you're able to rest some of your best talents and keep them healthy for what is a longer season? It's been talked about often, and let's talk about the style of play this defense comes out there with and how good they've been. It's because they've been very healthy. Last year, they had injuries to Tyleik Williams, and they offensively, on the offensive line, with Seth McLaughlin, with Josh Simmons going down, those were the major concerns. The Buckeyes this year, on the defensive side of the football, they've been very healthy up front. And when you have that core maintained of Caden McDonald and Edric Houston in the middle, these run stuffers and guys get in. McDonald, he's rising into first-round pick conversations. They do so much up front to free up Styles and Reese Downs behind it, because these are these massive human beings that also have that great feet. They're so violent with their hands, and they've been coached very well up front. I can't think of a defensive line in the sport of college football, and then you've got Kenyatta Jackson, Caden Curry, that you'd probably rather have than this Buckeyes front four, and then certainly front six, front seven, whatever you want to call it, with Styles and Reese behind that. But why are they so good? It's because they don't have to be on the field all that often for that many minutes. The Buckeyes are one of those slower pace of play teams. They amped it up a little bit more against UCLA. They're just on the field for what equates to in a 12-game regular season to only about 10 and a half full-length games because of that Ryan Day and Brian Hartline script in this offense to be like, if we can be this efficient and score this often, we can keep our guys fresh to the point where we get to the playoff Big Ten title game against a team like Indiana for the chance to lock in a first-round bye to the playoff. Essentially, a win, a free win in the first round of the playoff. I mean, you want to talk about impactful. That's another example of you don't have to play in the first round of the playoff and you get a bye, 3 weeks off, and you can get Tate, Smith, any nicks and knacks and guys that have been hurt to get them fully healthy, prepared for when they'll play in the quarterfinals. I mean, you're talking about what could be a ridiculously dangerous team to go up against. I know that there's the arguments of you'd like to play like last year. You had the momentum from the Tennessee game built in, but really because of some of the injuries here and the way that they've played throughout the entire season, if you had all that rest incorporated and them being fresh, I really don't see this team. They go up against such great competition every day in practice that you really don't see this team coming out to a slow start. And even if they did, they do have the best defense in the country, only giving up 8 points a game. And a lot of those points in the second halves have been against some backups here. It's a unit that when they bring in their backups, they're still playing at a high level. So that really is the goal here for the Buckeyes. Win this game in the first half, come out flying, establish the line of scrimmage, and stop that run. This team had 256 yards, did Rutgers, running the football against Maryland. But if you look at where is this going to be a threat, are the Buckeyes going to be threatened by Rutgers? Like, where have they stacked up in other matchups on the season? Well, I believe that this gives you an indicator of what we're headed for. Against Illinois, they played them on the road just like Ohio State did. They got beat 35-13. If you remember, the Buckeyes trounced Illinois. That was a game that was, I guess the closest it was a 10-point game in the third quarter. Ohio State immediately went down to make it a 17-point game. Purdue, they barely beat 27-24, slid by them. Ohio State, you know what they did to Purdue 2 weeks ago. They lost to Washington on the road 38-19, a team that was probably the Ohio State squad's second toughest game of the season. They beat them. And then Minnesota, a tight one. The Buckeyes were down 3-0 against Minnesota earlier in the year before they dominated them, as well as you look at Ohio earlier in the season. So you're looking at a number of teams that Rutgers has struggled to beat in Purdue and Ohio, and then some teams they've lost to. So this does stack up to be in line with the over and under is in this game. The Buckeyes are 32.5-point favorites as of the recording of this. So no doubt Ohio State is looking to win this game just about in the first half, like they've shown they are capable of doing. Being efficient, getting the stops necessary. Let's address one of those things out there that people talk about. Oh, they don't generate that many takeaways. They don't have as many sacks as a Texas A&M or even like a Missouri. Listen, when you're forcing punts this often, your stop rate is the highest in the country, and you have the best red zone defense, why do you need to take the football away when you're just going to get it anyway when you're forcing 3 and outs? Or if the team does get the ball in the red zone, they're probably going to come away with a field goal. It's going to be a turnover on downs. So that's my argument to that. They just haven't had enough defensive snaps to have the opportunity to get more takeaways. It's just been so many punts. And it's quick. It's immediate. This team has played the entire year like they played on defense in the college football playoff on that run when they were flying around. And the linebacker with Simon and Styles are flying down, and Ransom and Caleb Downs are decapitating people. That's the way that this team has felt from the beginning of the season, playing at a higher level of intensity. They've looked freer the entire year, and that's what Matt Patricia has brought in, putting these guys in their best spots that he can. And why can he do that? Because they're multiple, because they have the ability to play different positions. And you're able to see this team really play loose, free, and confident on that side of the ball. So for Kaliak Manis, that is a massive test. In order to stay somewhat in this game, you cannot turn the football over. I really believe that Ohio State's largest weakness is going to be outside by the hashes. If you can spread them out somewhat and there is space and you can get the football out of your hand quickly and try and attack the defensive backs. Igbinosun and Jermaine Matthews have been great the entire season. I would rather go out there instead of trying to win in a phone booth in the middle of that defense. I understand yards underneath and running a bunch of clock and slowing time of play will help. But what doesn't help is being in 2nd and 9 and 2nd and 10 just about every single series because you decide to try and run the football up the middle. If you get the ball in the perimeter, you might have a bit more space. The Buckeyes like to sort of back off a little bit and let the ball come to them. If you have a quarterback that gets the football out there and can be on time and decisive, that's how you're going to move on the Buckeyes. Like you saw Penn State convert some third downs. Minnesota was able to do that against them earlier in that game. And Illinois also do a little bit of the same thing. That's really the largest weakness. It's in between. You've seen some of these seam passes teams have gotten on the Buckeyes throughout the season, but that's really the only weakness, to be honest. If they play Indiana in that Big Ten title game, Cooper Jr. and Surratt, it's going to be a lot of fade balls. They'll be one-on-ones, and they're going to take them. And it's really going to come down to that throughout the day. And it's going to be fascinating watching it. How do these defensive backs hold up? And Igbinosun, and how many times would he be penalized potentially in that game? Something he's been much better at this season. That's how that game will stack up. So for Rutgers, that's where I'm attacking the Buckeyes. What's so difficult is typically you don't have linebackers of this type of range that can get out there to a screen pass, to the short hooks or underneath quick game to get out there immediately and to limit those plays to 3 yards instead of 5 or 6. That's really the largest difference between when you have a makeup of this type of defense compared to others. Now, on the offensive side of the football, Ohio State's main knock has been right guard and how they haven't been able to establish a guy in that position that can play well. Vansickle comes in. I thought he did a pretty good job in the first half. Now they're rotating that position, and they got the run game going. This was probably their best day running the football from the start. Bo Jackson, 112 and a touchdown. Peoples with the hurdle. Isaiah West, 61 yards. This game came out from the get-go that they wanted to establish the run the football. They did that. 222 yards on the ground, 6.7 yards per carry. Tremendous job running the football. I was very impressed, and that's honestly probably what Ryan Day was most excited about from his team, was seeing that, like, okay, team up north in a couple of weeks. Could we have something that's somewhat similar to that? He's not asking for 6.7 a carry. I think he'd probably take 4.7 a carry in that game. I know that's a very sore subject for Buckeye fans if Ohio State tries to go and run the football up the middle, but you know he's going to at some point want to lean on them from a physicality standpoint, and this team may just have the capability to do that if the interior of the O-line is shored up. Defensively, they certainly can for that matchup, but it does look like no Tate, no Smith against Rutgers. Clearly that helps Rutgers on the defensive side of the football and not having to go up against that duo. They, that Maryland passing attack didn't quite have a lot to offer. Malik Washington's been a great true freshman. He's played well this season, but he got it down on the ground. 164 yards on the ground on 8 carries. Just ridiculous what he did. But outside of that, they just didn't really have much to offer throwing the football down the field. And Maryland got behind in that game, and it just didn't feel all that close in the second half. So in stopping that Buckeye defense, look, you want to make them march the length of the field. It's your only shot with Mylan Graham, Rogers, Porter, Innis, most likely looking like the starting trio foursome for Ohio State. Look, you still got to keep these guys in front of you and make Julian Sayin march the ball down the field. Every single team has to have the same game plan. You can't let these guys get behind you and give them their one-on-one opportunities. Sayin's just going to take them. And what's funny is this felt like an inefficient, not great game from Julian Sayin. He's 23 of 31 for 184 and a touchdown. That's still well over 70% completion percentage and a pretty good day for a first-year starting quarterback. But because of what Ohio State fans they've been used to. If you don't know, I am a diehard Ohio State fan. If you didn't know that already, please subscribe for more content in the future. With Blitz and Blender, if you haven't already. But we try and be as unbiased as possible here. But it's like, that's one of his weaker games of the season, and he still was pretty good. There were miscommunications, and clearly the continuity with Graham, with Rogers, Porter, isn't what it is with Smith and Tate. How can it be when you're working with legitimately guys that could step in and maybe be the top 10 wide receivers in the NFL right now as it is, and you're looking at those guys consistently, and then you just don't have them available. So it's perfectly understandable that there were a bit more struggles on the offensive side of the ball in that game against UCLA. You got to give the Bruins credit somewhat on defense in limiting the Buckeye passing attack to 184 from Julian Sayin. That's not easy to do, but this has started to definitely look like a two-man race for the Heisman Trophy between Julian Sayin and Fernando Mendoza coming down to the Big Ten title game. Ty Simpson not playing well in the loss to Oklahoma. 2 interceptions, the pick 6, and then Marcel Reed not looking very good in the first half. He played great in the second half, but doesn't really look like he's got a great shot. So this is a two-man race for that thing. Sayin likely in the next 2 games doesn't have to put up all that type of crazy numbers. Do believe there'll be such a weight in the eye test and the way that game looks, that the Heisman will go to the guy that simply outperforms the other in that Big Ten title game. So you're just looking for positive momentum here. The same thing it's been all year. You're really confident in this kid because his accuracy is so easy. That release is as quick as it gets, an easy motion. There's not been, I don't think, a sequence the entire season, except for if you look at the Texas game where you're still learning what he is, and then quickly you find out that this kid's a stud, and he's going to be probably a top 5 pick in the 2027 draft of April 2027, is there's not really been a series the whole year where you're like, man, like Julian, like, man, that you just can't throw. Like, he's had a couple picks on the season, but you've been like kind of fine with them because they're learning opportunities. There hasn't been a sequence at all, or I'll say this, where you've lost confidence in the starting quarterback for Ohio State. And I really think that's a strong thing because this is a day and age with the pass-heavy attack and the way that football has been more spread out, played on the perimeter, the importance of having great weapons and a quarterback that can throw the ball down the field, that when you have a fan base as passionate and as unsatiated as what the Buckeye fan base is, to have a quarterback come in here and do this and be on pace to be setting the completion percentage record and finish at 80% completion on the season and do that in your first year, it really is something that I think people could potentially be taking for granted. You absolutely should not be doing that. This is something that's truly special, and you may never see again a first-year quarterback come in here. And I don't want to hear the arguments of always playing with like this receiving core. I get it. I understand that fully, but accuracy doesn't lie. Ball placement doesn't lie when he's completing really tight window throws to Brandon Inniss. And you really saw Brandon Inniss show what he's been, wide receiver 3 this season, a guy that's caught in some flack and people wanting to see Mylan Grand potentially step into that role more and get more targets. It's like, oh, there's a reason Brandon Inniss is in that spot, and he's had experience within this offense, and he's a junior and now an upperclassman. You're like, okay, well, I actually do see it. I'm going to probably not have anything negative to say more about Brandon and the guys behind him. So that's just sort of what you've been working with on offense. The run game's been coming together here. The offensive line stepping up, having a better day. So overall, you can understand what this Buckeyes identity will be in this game. It's going to be efficient. Pace of play, it felt like they were speeding things up, snapping the football around 17, 18 seconds in the first half of that game, which is relatively funny. When you've got teams that are snapping the ball sometimes before it even hits the 30-second mark, or it's at the 27, 28 second on the play clock. It's incredible how quick some teams go. But again, that winds up hurting your defense because you hang them out to dry when they've got to be on the field for longer, for more possessions. So that's something that Ohio State has done tremendously well throughout the entire season. So against Rutgers, look for the Buckeyes early and often to really try and run the football. That's something that's going to be a true emphasis early on in this game to lean on that. And again, the status of Smith and Tate as recording this, I don't know. It's just a simple projection from what it sounded like, from what it's looked like for both of those guys. Why rush them back when, with all due respect to Rutgers, you could beat this team and name the score without them on the field, or with them on the field? The score can be exactly the same. You wouldn't even notice all that much of a difference, except a couple of flashy plays. Jeremiah making the easiest one-handed catch you've probably ever seen. I've never seen a ball stick that easily and be made to look that easy. Don't take that for being the easiest catch ever. Like, that's the easiest. No, he made it look easier than any one-handed catch you've ever seen. The stuff that these guys do, I think at times we take it for granted. It's really needed to be understood how special this is. And you would think maybe you see it again. It's possible. Wouldn't doubt Ohio State Heartline to bring in those types of guys. And you can. But this is something special that just has to be appreciated when it's on the field. And when this run for the playoff, because it's just about clinches in Ohio State college football playoff appearance, I guess. A win against Rutgers, an 11-1 Ohio State team, would be for sure in the playoffs. So technically, I guess you got to win one more of these games to lock yourself in there. So this is kind of like that opportunity. That's what this team has now with this 12-team playoff. A 10-2 team from the SEC or the Big Ten is just about guaranteed to get into that thing. And you're looking at Ohio State, which I believe for 13 of the last 14 years has had double-digit wins. And the only season where they didn't was during COVID. So you're looking at, if this were a 12-team playoff, they would legitimately have been in every single one of those. And you're looking at the statistic of the national champion for the last 10 titles has been a team that was ranked in the top 3 of the second college football playoff ranking. Ohio State's been in that top 3, I believe 6 out of the 11 rankings that have come out. They've got 2 titles, and then there's other seasons there where they're in that top 3. In 2 or 3 of those, they don't even wind up making the college football playoff. So there's been a sort of, I would say, a boundary at times or a large fence for them to get over, because it's been very tough. I mean, to lose one game and for that to end your season, and how that's happened in the past, it's been very difficult. When you give a team with this type of culture that little bit of margin, that look, you could lose a game and still have a chance, or maybe even lose 2. You don't have to be perfect and still have a shot. It's really loosened them up. You can see it from Ryan Day in the way that they've coached this season at the national title, that he's still curled up tight, and he's really as intense as ever, but still there's in that back of his head that he's got that title. He can breathe, that the weight of the world is still on his shoulders, but he can definitely hold it and have that weight sit a lot easier on him. So this Buckeye team is primed as they've ever been to go make a run. The health is a concern, but that can very quickly dissipate because of the opportunity of what's almost looking like a very important game. I would argue that the Big Ten title game, if you have a 12-0 Ohio State, 12-0 Indiana, the loser of that game should get a first-round bye, be the 3 or the 4 seed, and I think that's pretty obvious that these are the best 2 teams in the country right now. The way you saw A&M struggle against South Carolina, and the way that the SEC's looked, it's like they've got these 6-7 teams that are circular, and anybody can kind of beat each other at any given moment. Ohio State and Indiana have really separated here, that if that game's within 2 scores, that even the loser, if they lose by 13, should still be given a first-round bye, and very likely could wind up seeing each other again in the semifinal or in the national championship game. So that's what's at stake right now, is staying healthy. Hopefully they are able to do that, and hopefully, you could see an effort here from Rutgers that is able to challenge the Buckeyes. They've only been challenged one time this season to play a 4-quarter game at home. That was against Texas, came down the final possession, needed a stop. On the road, you could say, I guess, Washington, that game still needed a drive or to kill some clock in the 4th quarter against the Huskies, but that game never really felt in doubt in the 4th quarter. That's what's different about this team, is they haven't been challenged to that same level. They have not trailed for a single second in the second half of a game this season. Last year, Nebraska, they trailed in the 4th quarter. Michigan, obviously. Against Oregon, they clearly did. And there were games earlier in the year where they had struggles. So all that talk about, can this team be tested if it comes up? Are you so sure that it does come up? Are you so sure that you're able to walk out a team that's able to you're going to need to muster about 17 or so points in the first half to even have a chance to have a lead on this Buckeye team in the second half? They're only giving up 8 points a game, so you're going to have to double that total. And then you're going to have to put up an effort defensively to stop this unit when everything is healthy. So you're talking about a monumental task. I really believe that you're looking at one of the best teams in the history of the sport, and you break it all down from what they have from an attack, the efficiency of this team, how prepared they will be for this run, and defensively, that type of dominance on this level. It's looked easy for them in 2nd and 3rd gear at times. They haven't even had to put the medal down. They did it for a possession or 2 drives against Penn State. That's really the only time this entire season where you've seen this team show their true colors and then go right back into hiding and to say and not fully show their true identity. So for Rutgers, they got it. A very tough task here in order to try and pull out an upset like that. First of all, it takes stopping the run. It takes yards on first down, making things easier on your quarterback, scoring touchdowns in the red zone if you get it there, being efficient on third down, all of those things. Do they have a chance? Of course, anybody has a shot in these types of games. You always do. Does it look realistic? It really doesn't with the way that this Buckeye team has played. So I'm going to go with Ohio State with a win in this game, 45-6. I think that the Buckeyes put themselves in a position to be in winning in the Big Ten title against Michigan next week. So I appreciate you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this Blitz with Blinder video, again, I'm Josh Blinder, making college and NFL videos every week, getting you ready for these big matchups. One's looming pretty soon here. Really hope that you enjoyed this one. Let me know down below. Does Rutgers have a shot here? I know I went into other storylines and what's happening around general overall schematics, because frankly, if you wanted me to go into the nitty-gritty details, you're just going to wind up hearing me say talent of the Buckeyes having better player here interior, offensive-wise. And it coming down to that, and we can. It's all out there in front of us. But I think we all know what's in store for this game, whether or not they've got that duo out there. So thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, get down there in the comments. I'll try and respond to all of you guys as per usual. And let's go. This has been an incredible season. There's a whole lot more to come. Let's appreciate every second of it and get set for the end of November. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.